War cannot cancel your life. And probably the biggest goal of enemy is destroy your dreams. So what you have to do is protect your dreams.
Welcome to the podcast Yakty. Yakty means how are you in Ukrainian. I am your host Luzia Tschirky, a former correspondent reporting from Ukraine, now a book author and a freelancer. This is a podcast with a guest live from Ukraine. The goal of this podcast is to give people in Ukraine the opportunity to talk about their experience during Russia's war against the country. I am more than delighted to welcome today's guest on the podcast, Alex Gorgan.
Thank you for inviting me into your program.
Alex is a captain officer of the Joint Tactical Group Pegasus in the Ukrainian Army. Alex joined the Ukrainian Army as a volunteer in the very beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of the country. Before joining the Ukrainian Army, Alex was a top manager in a private developer's company. Alex Gorgan is joining us currently in Kiev. He is in the capital city for the very first time, as he got a vacation this week and he joined his family. Alex Gorgan, welcome to the podcast. I always start this podcast with the question, Yakty, how are you? Yakty Zaras, how are you right now?
For normal people in a peaceful country, when you're asking somebody, how are you? It's just like usual greeting. But in Ukraine now, when someone is asking you, how are you? You start to think and how to give an answer because it's not easy. It's a difficult question, how are you now in Ukraine? You cannot say, I'm fine, because you know that this night was shelling, some kids now is dead, innocent kid who was just killed in their beds. So you cannot tell, I'm fine, when you know it. But in the same time, you still have hope and you are fighting and you rely on some kind of miracle because you know the situation on the war zone, and that's why I mostly give an answer when someone asking me how are you. I say it's a different way, different. I say different. So it just means that from one side I'm really sad, I quite depressed, but on the other side I still very excited because we're still fighting. We are not giving up. We are not even have an idea to give up. So that's why we are still really charged to fight to liberate our country. So it's not simple answer on the question how are you.
You joined the army in the very beginning of the full-scale invasion. What made you join the Ukrainian army?
I will tell you. The thing is that well, I've got 3 kids, and by legislation I have a right do not go to army. But I decided to go because the invasion was so brutal, the invasion was so arrogant that I felt it's just like some robbers and rapists came to my house and tried to kill my kids, to rape my wife. So for me it was impossible to avoid, and from the first day I just came to the recruiting center, stood in line, and from the first day I was appointed as a deputy of commander of infantry company, and even without any military experience at all. I'm not a military person, not at all. I, by my nature, by my thoughts, by my life position, I am totally peaceful guy for 100%. And for me, take weapons and kill enemies is just like some kind of necessity, and I cannot avoid this necessity. So it's just like normal behavior of every human being who trying to protect home, and that's why I'm in army.
When you joined the army without having any background. You have not served in the Ukrainian army before. What were your thoughts back then of how long you're going to serve? What did you expect?
Well, I thought that I cannot serve really long, not because I thought that war will be short. I thought that I will be killed in the first few days. So I just said goodbye to all my friends. I did not tell goodbye to my wife and kids because it's kind of sin, but I tell them that they have to stay in a safe place in the Western Ukraine, but I need to be in Kyiv because I need to take some cash from bank, and I just came to recruiting center, took rifle, and went to the front line. And every day I made a call to my wife. Of course, I just feel really guilty, and I say, well, honey, the situation with bank is not so good, and it was explosion around us, shelling. And actually, it lasts almost 2 weeks. And 6th of March is the birthday of my daughter, and I just felt that I cannot lie anymore. And I made a little video, and it was just before of a big combat mission, and I thought that probably I will not be back. And I made a footage, and I made a greeting to my daughter with her birthday, and I just make kind of it was my coming out. It was kind of coming out, and I say, okay, I am in army now. I am a military, and this is my mates. And it was a few guys around me, and I say we are going to battle today. So, and I address everything to my daughter, how I really, really love her, and I making everything for her, for Ukraine. It was maybe quite, I don't know. For now, it seems like quite artistic, but for those period of time, it was a moment of truth in my life. I just said goodbye to my family in this video. But thanks to God, I'm still alive, even now. So that's why the answer on your question, I thought that my service will be not so long.
I have a follow-up question on what you just told us. What you think were the reasons you did not share with your wife that you would like to join the army, that you would like to volunteer?
Well, I'm sure for 100% that she would not let me go. No, for 100%. She loved me so much, and I love her so much that it's just impossible. I'm sure for 100%. She would take a knife and just said that I can kill myself or make something more even serious, and took promise from me that I will not go or something like that. But for sure, it was no other way, just like to lie. No other way. I'm not lying to my wife, never. It's just like first and last my big lie in my life, in our relationship. So,
As far as I understand the Ukrainian laws, as a father of 3 kids, you could legally cross the border, so you could legally leave Ukraine for a Western country, like, for example, Switzerland. Why did you decide not to leave, but to stay?
uh, because this is my motherland. I cannot leave my mother. Ukraine, this is my mother. This land gave me life, gave me everything, gave me so much joy, so much happiness. I met my wife here in Ukraine. I've got kids. Since my childhood, I was taught to love my country, to defend my country. So my country gave me so much that this day is my time to give it back. So that's why I cannot go to Switzerland or another country. Well, and I was invited from the first day I've got a lot of friends all over the world, and they just ask me go to the Australia, Norway, UK, United States, other countries, and I reject it because for me it's a kind of shame that I can just leave my country. Why? Because the enemy. So we need to protect our country. We need to defend it, because if every kind person will let to do evil what they want to do, the evil will prevail in the world. So someone has to make some resilience. Some you cannot let the evil to develop any plan so easily. Of course, the cost of this resistance can be really, really high, but in the matter of the global scale, you need to protect good and justice, sometimes even by the cost of your life. Because it's not just for you, it's not just for Ukrainians, it's for all good people in the world and next generations.
Today came the news that Donald Trump is most probably becoming the next president of the United States, so he got re-elected. And during his campaign, he said once that he's going to make a deal with Vladimir Putin within 24 hours for peace with Ukraine. What is your point of view on this statement? Are you expecting that there is going to be peace very soon?
No. I respect position of the American people and their choice. And I'm sure that Donald Trump will be the next president of United States. So I really respect it because it was a result of the free election. So I'm sure for 100% that Mr. Trump will be really angry by the position of the Putin, because Putin will ignore any proposal from the Trump, and his attitude, the Donald Trump's position, will be changed completely for 100%, because he still thinks that it's just like conflict between Ukraine and Russia, but it's not. It's a global conflict, and Ukraine is just kind of prologue, and we know exactly who is behind the curtain, and we know the role of China, we know the role of different other parties in all this huge scenario. So and for Trump, it will be not easy just to stop, because you cannot just stop Putin. Putin don't want to take just Donbass and Crimea. Putin need to destroy, to vanish out all Ukraine, because Ukraine, this really huge risk for Russia, big danger, because we are kind of model of the free society, and this is the biggest threat to the Russia, where people just like slaves, they are living like in a jail there. They are just like hostages of one sick man. Of course, I can tell that Russian society, unfortunately, supporting Putin and really want to see Ukraine destroyed as well. But they are so wash-brained, they are so hypnotized, they're just like zombies.
Speaking about Ukrainian society, there were members of the Ukrainian army who said publicly, like, that everyone in Ukraine should get ready at some point to serve in the Ukrainian army, that at some point it will be everybody's turn to serve in the Ukrainian army. You yourself, as a soldier of the Ukrainian army, are you expecting the same? Are you expecting that everyone in Ukraine at a certain point, will serve in the army?
No, I don't expect like this, and I actually don't want to make like this, because, well, I really want, and it is my pure wish, for those men who don't want to serve, do not serve. Of course, it's really, really big kind of lack of the people now in Ukrainian army. We are going out of people, and this is the biggest problem now for Ukraine, because we can build new tanks, we can receive as a aid from states, from European Union, from other countries, some military equipment, gears, vehicles, but at the same time, we are going out of people. But I cannot have position that if someone don't want to fight, this man or woman has to be just like forced to do it. Because in my, for example, unit, fortunately, all people, they was volunteer, and the motivation is extremely high. Well, as you told to your listeners, I have first time vacation since the beginning of the war, and actually I was forced to go to vacation. I did not want to do it.
Why?
Because the unity of my unit, it's so high, and my commander just called me and say, Alex, you can be just like addicted by war. You can be really seriously damaged in a mental sense. You need to go to your family. You need to go to your father, to your friends for a while, because you are going too far. And he just kicked me off from my unit for 2 weeks. Because this kind of describes you the level of motivation and of people in my unit, and it's just like the same stuff with everyone. And I remember it's happened sometime that if someone is going to vacation, the biggest worry, guys, please do not go to some serious combat mission without me or something like that. They just like asking, please wait me, because I need to cover you up. You can be damaged, you can be killed without me. So something like this. So it's really, really funny, but it shows that if person is motivated to fight, it's really good. And hopefully we've got no one who was forced to go to army. And it will be disaster if someone will be sent to us and taken somewhere on the street, taken to the bus, to the recruiting center, just like force, you have to go and fight. Because we don't need people who don't want to fight, who is not ready to die for Ukraine, for freedom, for justice.
Can you now relax a little bit at home?
Yes, it's. I'm really thankful to. Well, I'll tell you. It's also important. Even during the war, I still have session with the psychoanalytics, the guy who give me session as a therapist, because otherwise it will be really hard to accept civil reality, uh, and I don't feel any problem with the adaptation to the civil life at all. I went to the cinema. I saw an incredible movie, Wild Robot, and some other. So I still I don't afraid loud noises. I love people on the streets. I'm not jealous, and I'm not hate them because they are not fighting somewhere in the trenches. Just because I've got really strong psychological support from the expert, from the specialist. And it's really important to find opportunity to got it. And I've got 2 sessions per week is a lot. And in any situation, even if I've got a little pause in my military operation, I call to my therapist and speaking with him.
So you're out there in the trenches and you're calling your therapist?
Yes, yes. And I can tell you the war is a huge challenge, but in the beginning I decided, okay, I will still continue work with my therapist. I continue make for myself healthy food because I am vegetarian. You can just imagine how to be vegetarian in the army. So I cook for myself 2.5 years in the trenches, and because it's a problem to be vegetarian in Ukrainian. Only I think not just in Ukrainian, in any army. And well, and I still keep my some special habits, and I show in as an example to other guys that even if you are in trenches, it don't mean that your life is ended. And I can tell you a little funny story because I'm quite mature guy. Yesterday was my birthday, and I'm 49.
Congratulations to your birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, so and a lot of guys around me, they are much younger than me, and I say, okay, guys, sometimes we got 2 or 3 days in a mode, we call it radio silence, when we cannot even switch on telephone or even switch off Bluetooth devices like smartwatches.
Because it's too dangerous.
It's too dangerous, or some special operation that you cannot disclose yourself where you are. It was November 2022. We was in the trenches, in the mud. We decided that I need to study something completely new, brand new, some new skills. And I choose on Coursera course in a Berkeley Musical College that I will study music engineering, how to write electronical music. And it's enough to got just smartphone because every smartphone, especially if you got iPhone, is a GarageBand application. So I spent more than 1 month, and I completely finished the course. I passed all exam in the Berkeley Musical College, and I got certificate as the engineer of the electronical music. And I just show for all guys that trenches is not a cage. Cage can be just in your mind, and nothing can stop you from your inspiration, your willing to develop yourself, to be better, to obtain new skills, to reach new goals. And actually, that's why, yes, I still continue my communication with the therapist. I still cook for myself nice, healthy food. I do my sport exercises. I still read nice literature because war cannot cancel your life. And probably the biggest goal of enemy is destroy your dreams. So what you have to do is protect your dreams.
Can you describe what you're doing in your position as a captain officer of the Joint Tactical Group Pegasus? So what is a day in the trenches looks alike, if there is such as a standard day?
I cannot describe everything in details because if I will tell what I do, the enemy will know the profile of my units, and I cannot make it because it's military secret. What I can tell you, I am a part of maneuverable group. We are not staying on a one position more than one day. So it does mean that every new morning I will wake up in a totally new place. And probably the most difficult issue in the war for me was to be used to the thing that when I wake up, literally I don't know where am I, and it's really really hard because when you wake up, you just trying to remember where you are, and it's really hard to remember where you are and how it's happened that you are here. First half of year, it was really scary for me because every time I thought that I'm somewhere in a hospital, that I was wounded and I just like after operation, something like this. But now, when I'm waking up, I'm not trying to open my eyes immediately. I'm trying to lay down a little bit, trying to just like remember to recollect, where am I, what happened yesterday, how I here, where am I. So it's just like kind of little quest for myself every time when I waking up, where am I, because I even cannot say every morning, because I've got no morning in my life anymore. I've got no night in my life anymore. I'm sleeping when it's just like possible to sleep, because we're working at night, we're working at day, we are not working by some schedule, because we sometimes we react on an offensive operation of enemies, sometimes we plan and make own operations. So there is no day and night in my life anymore. It's just like total mess. Total mess. For me, it's really important to track how many hours per some period I sleep. So that's the only kind of way to keep myself in more or less proper shape, physical shape. So what I can tell to your listeners, we are traveling all the time along the front line, all the time. And that's really hard, because you all time you got no place, no bed, no corner when you can put your luggage to post your picture of family on a wall or somewhere. You just like all time oil travelers. That's the kind of our profile. We are working all the time in movement, because we involved in the situation when there is some danger of the breakthrough on the front line, or when we see the weak spot of the enemy's defense line, we are going there and make some tangible work to enemies.
At the current moment, during the last month, for example, looking at the map, of the occupied territories, the Russian army gained as much territory as it did not since more than 2 years. How are you personally dealing with, this development of things at the front line? How is that for you personally as a soldier of the Ukrainian army?
Well, of course, I'm really sorry that we are losing territory, but because for me, territory is not just like square, it's villages and cities. And of course, for me, it's really hard to imagine when we will get it back, unfortunately. At the same time, for me, it's more important to know how many orcs we killed when they was trying to take this territory. If we killed a lot of them, I thinking, okay, it's okay, because we changed this territory on a few thousand lives of these enemies. So but for me, it's also important to know about our casualties. Because for me, it's a number one, is a priority of any kind of index to know how many Ukrainian soldiers was killed or wounded in this area. I know exactly that we can take territory back, but unfortunately, we will never give lives to those heroes who sacrificed their lives to protect it.
A short explanation for our listeners. You just mentioned the word orc, which is from Lord of the Rings, from this saga from the author Tolkien, and orcs are a figure in this saga. They were former elves that were tortured and became monsters, so-called orcs, and in Ukraine, many people refer with the term orcs to soldiers of the Russian army. Can you explain to the listeners why you're using this word? Because I'm quite sure that most of them have not heard this word before in this context outside of the book of Tolkien.
Well, we usually, actually, it's our normal notion. We not saying Russians, mostly we say orcs. My units as well, because I don't know, it's just like habit, and a lot of other people call them orcs as well. For me personally, I think the situation in Ukraine quite similar to those situations which is described in Fellowship of the Ring in a Tolkien book, because Ukrainians, they're really like hobbits. We are really peaceful nation, really peaceful nation. We really likes to eat tasty, to have fun, to got some gathering, to go to from one house to other, to celebrate some holidays and birthday. We are so peaceful nation. But I don't know why destiny chose us to be on the peak of this global conflict. And Ukraine is battlefield of the actually like Third World War, but it's just like hybrid, the hidden. And unfortunately, all these forces of evil, which is against Ukraine, because it's not just Russian. There is a lot of elements of the other countries, because we are suffering every day and night from the Iranian drones Shahed. Well, almost all shells now they are from North Korea. Well, Iran, North Korea, China, they are supporting Russia, not just like little. No, they provide almost all weapons to Russia. And now the North Korea is providing the people as well. So it's just like coalition, it's just like acts of evil. And orcs is normal notion how to describe this situation.
You said in the very first beginning that you were expecting that you would die very soon, as you had no experience in the army before, you had no military background yourself. What would you say? How did you survive? How did you manage to survive?
Well, it's just a miracle, just pure miracle. Actually, I am a live evidence that the miracle exists, because I've been in such a bad situation, no chance to survive, but I am alive. It's just I am a Christian. Maybe a lot of your listeners, they are kind of don't believe in God, and it's okay. I respect it. But I'm sure if you will be on my place, you will believe in God after this, because I stayed without any wound in the situation. There was no chance to survive at all. So I'm just lucky guy. I'm really lucky guy. All my life I was so lucky. I met my wife on the street, and I fell in love since first sight, and she as well. Can you imagine? I just met her, and on my third date, I made a proposal to marry me, and I was waiting this third date just because it was Valentine's Day. I was ready to make my proposal from the first day. So, and it was a marriage, and exactly after the 9 months after our wedding, my wife gave me as a best gift in my life son. My son was born just after 9 months after the wedding. My life before of war was just like a dream, like a story, like a fairy tale, and unfortunately war changed everything. But even during the war, I cannot say that my life is really kind of dark. No, I've got new friends. I met such a nice people, incredible people. I have feeling of a lot of very deep sense now, which it was not kind of able for me before war. And actually I still love my life.
When you compare yourself to people, like people you might knew from your job as a manager in a very high position, people who did not join the army, people who maybe decided to leave Ukraine and now are abroad, maybe other managers you knew from your job. Would you say there's a difference between you and them, those who had not made the same experience as you?
Of course, there is a huge difference. Well, if someone went from Ukraine to other country and staying somewhere in the Netherlands, Germany or Spain, and living there, working and helping Ukraine, helping army in some way, I understand, accept, and respect these people. And I'm really sorry about them. They are not in Ukraine. And I'm really sorry about them because I know that sometimes they are suffering from the feeling of shame that they are not in Ukraine. I'm sure they are in more painful situation than I am. My life is easier, even under the shelling in the trenches. My life is easier in a sense of dialogue with the conscience. And I'm really sorry about these people. I'm really sorry. But there is some people who came from Ukraine to other country, and they are making really wicked, loud parties. They are buying expensive stuff. They are spending money in fancy restaurants. They are showing off. I do not accept these people. These people even worse than enemies, because they make erosion, they ruin our unity and feeling that we have to stand in this fight as one. So that's kind of my feeling. And actually, and there is big difference between those who was forced to go out of Ukraine but still with Ukraine, still believe in Ukraine and still helping to Ukrainian army, and those people who not just came from Ukraine, they act really badly, and they disgraced Ukrainians and show really bad example to others.
What you think, besides more people voluntarily showing up for joining the army, what else should be done, could be done, that the position of the soldiers within the Ukrainian army would be better? What do you think?
Well, for last year, it it is some kind of revolution in our army because there is more and more robots coming. So there is hope that we will not need so many people if everything with a new innovative weapon will be like this, because we've got a lot of UAV drones, but now more and more land robots is coming. So actually, if the partner states will support innovative research and development, which is really kind of big in Ukraine now, and we will have more land robots, this will be no so crucial need in people. And actually, it's also the good stuff, because instead to take people from the street, it's easier to produce land robots, like little tank with a assault machine rifle, with a nice optics, with a great system of radio control. So it's, and if we will develop autonomous version of control, it will be great. And it's not some kind of fantastic. You see, you will be amazed, but a few huge military operation for last month was conducted just with robots, and it's incredible. And actually, it will make some kind of equal between us and Russia, because Russia got a lot of people. But if we will accelerate development of the new models of robots, not just FPV drones, but robots which can drive on a land. So I think it will be not so big a problem that we are going out of people, because I believe we don't need to take people from the streets. We need keep some Ukrainians alive, because this war will have no sense if all Ukrainians will be killed on the front line.
How are you personally dealing with people you knew? I assume you knew people who died during this war, who were killed. How are you personally dealing with witnessing so much loss?
This is my biggest problem. I'm really very empathic person. I'm extrovert, and I really, really easily fallen in love with some people. And I changed a lot of units from the beginning of the war, and it creates some huge networking. And I made a lot of friends on the war. And when in some group chat there is a news that someone was killed, for me it's a tragedy all the time. And actually 90% of time when I'm talking with the therapist, it's about my dead friends. That's for me a big problem. I cannot let person go. I still keep it, because for me, people are the biggest treasure in my life, the biggest value in my life. And when someone is gone, and I understand this person gone forever, I cannot go to this person and ask to excuse me for something what I made wrong, or I cannot make something for this person what I forgot to make. For me, is a big problem. I lost my mother just before war, and for me, this is a huge tragedy, because I had so many plans and ideas to make to my mother, and I just was out of time. And now I'm so sorry, because all my plans is totally useless. So the same stuff with my killed friends. So that's really hard. I have no recipe how to live with this, because I'm really suffering.
Thank you very much for sharing this so openly with us, Alex. I really appreciate that you're so open talking about all these very difficult things and situations you are faced, absolutely inhuman situation you're faced with. How are you personally able to plan, into the future? Are you thinking about what might be in 2 years or in 3 years, or are you trying not even to think about, plans in the future so far?
No, I'm planning my future, because there is a great book. Actually, before war, I was not just a manager in the huge developing company in the real estate. In the same time, I was the owner of a little law company, and we provide support for IT companies. And happened that the system of the development of products, Scrum, is a method how to develop product, is described by really really nice in a book. And in this book, it's a mention about one American general. He was a prison in Vietnam, and he was in jail in Vietnam, and he told to his buddies, guys, don't mix two different notions. You cannot stay without hope. You cannot live without belief that everything will be good in one side, but in other side, you have to face brutal facts of reality. And it's really difficult to combine two stuff, to 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 keep hope, but in the same time to accept reality. So I've got the same situation, and actually I accept reality. I cannot plan my life and think that war will be ended in a 1 year, in 2 or 3, because I know that it will not. It's just beginning. Unfortunately, I think it will be something much worse soon, not just in Ukraine, because China will try to take Taiwan. The different countries will try to really vanish Israel from the face of earth. And I'm sure there will be some issue in Africa, the bigger issue than now. So Ukraine is just like kind of prologue, and the war will be in different places in the planet soon. So we cannot plan that everything will be just stopped here. No, unfortunately, no. But what really keeps me alive, okay, I will share you some secret because I did not tell to anyone this. I'm writing a book for my daughter, and I just writing because I afraid that I can be killed and she will never know how I loved her. So that's why I'm writing book, just like big book. It's not just like a little for kids. It's a huge one. I spent almost 2 years for now for writing this book, and it's for me it's really kind of strong habit to spend at least 30 minutes every day to make it. So it's kept me alive, and I've got a lot of other plans as well, and this the huge challenge how to stay alive in these circumstances.
Alex Gorgan, thank you so much for joining us on Yakte Ukraine Life and for sharing with us what you're going through and showing us such an amazing strength you have and an example you are for everyone who listened to this podcast, I'm sure. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Luzia Tschirky. I'm your host and you're listening to Yakte Ukraine Life.